Hey everyone, I'm Migu, and this is my tool-assisted speedrun of Mario & Luigi Partners in Time. I'll start by saying a little bit about the history of this run. I finished my first TAS of this game in April 2017 with a time of 3:21:09. I was pretty happy with it, but just weeks later it attracted the attention of glitch hunters, Solidified Gaming, and Really Tall, who are known for finding glitches in Paper Mario the Thousand Year Door, among other games. After finding several skips that saved about 20 minutes in total, Solid found a glitch that cut over an hour off the run. This gate glitch is called gate skip, and it has been theorized for years. The Time Holder Shroob Castle, the final dungeon of this game, opens pretty early on, but you can't actually get inside your castle without collecting the 5 golden star shards. If there was a way to get past the gate without opening it, it would mean we could go straight to the final dungeon without collecting all of the shards. This would skip everything from Glitzy Desert to Star Shrine, saving over an hour. The loading zone behind the gate is always active, so it's just a matter of getting past the gate. In August 2017, Gate Skip was found. We can now finish the game right after beating Sunnyside. The problem is that the final bosses would take at least 20 minutes if done perfectly. So the central question is, what's the best way to prepare for the final bosses? I'll be answering that question when we get there. After Gate Skip was found, I spent the next few months routing out this TAS, and began work on the actual TAS on January 1st. I was able to finish it in under 2 months since I was able to copy a lot of the input from the old TAS, and I got a lot better at optimizing the game. Here, Baby Bowser has 20 HP, but the fight ends after 5 hits, no matter how much damage is dealt. This run is on the European version. The US version has increased boss health compared to all other versions. In particular, the final boss has 2,700 more HP across both forms in US and other versions. There are a few glitches that only work on the US 1.0 version, but they do not save nearly enough time to account for the difference in boss health. So I avoided the US version. The title screen in Japanese is 1 second faster than European, but I chose European so that the encode has English text. Now is a good time to explain basic movement techniques. Normal walking speed is 2 units per frame, or 1.5 units in each direction when walking diagonally. If Mario is touching a wall and moves diagonally against the wall, speed will be 1.6 along the wall, so it's better to walk along the wall for a speed of 2. However, if Mario is less than 1.5 units from a wall and walks diagonally against the wall, his distance from the wall is added to his speed along the wall in the next frame. For example, if he's 1 unit away from a wall, speed the next frame will be 2.6 units along the wall. This is called wall boosting. That was a Toad boost. When entering an NPC's hitbox from above, Mario's is boosted out of its hitbox. I use this to save some frames in Peach's castle. The game doesn't want to place Mario too close to a ledge, so Mario can get a boost when walking off a ledge. The size of the ledge boost depends on the angle of movement relative to the angle of the ledge, and the distance to the ledge the frame before walking off of it. These boosts tend to be larger than wall boosts, but smaller than Toad boosts.
Go.
Lucky hits are disabled in this battle, so the only way to speed up this fight is by hitting every counterattack on the first possible frame. Also, it's important to skip the tutorials because it just takes too much time. I only upgrade POW in this run, since I'll be extremely underleveled and I'll need all the POW I can get. In the previous TAS, I upgraded speed a few times, but that is no longer optimal.
Ow, ow, ow. Tapi para to trabaho tudo. Okay. Oh yeah. Oh no. Yeah. Yeah. Ha. Tapi para to trabaho tudo. Oh yeah. What? What? Mhm. Hmm. Eto, sono lavato, l'abito. Hmm. Hmm?
The start of this game is pretty slow due to all these tutorials.
Wah, para uto kayo sono pataring ito to. Oh. Tapi para to trabaho tudo. Oh.
Unlike most cutscene triggers in this game, these tutorial triggers only activate on the ground. I can jump into the second trigger in order to start the cutscene further to the right and decrease the camera scrolling time. The trigger for the M&L block tutorial is narrow enough to completely jump over. It is still necessary to hit all of the blocks in order to advance to the next area, but stuff while text and camera movement can be skipped. This is made difficult by the fact that one of the blocks is completely over the trigger. Mario's speed is decreased when he's on a slope and facing up the slope. By jumping from flat ground up the slope, this is avoided. If the slope is too long to ascend in a single jump, I can jump while facing perpendicular to the slope for one frame to maintain normal walking speed up slopes. This is called stair jumping, and it's used for all stairs and slopes throughout the run.
Let's go. Okie dokie.
The POW upgrade I gave Mario after Junior Shrooboid allowed him to kill the Shrooblets in 2 jumps. Lucky hits are again disabled here. It's faster to get hit because Luigi's dodging animation is slow.
Wow. Luigi. Oh no. Let's go.
This is one place where I do something called extended wall boosts. Normally it's only optimal to do one wall boost off a wall, since it would be slow to walk away from the wall just in order to do another wall boost. However, for slanted walls you can walk away and back against them without losing time, and depending on the wall's angle, you can keep on getting wall boosts to go a little bit faster.
Let's go. Okie dokie.
This battle, of course, is unwinnable. Shroob's animation for attacking Luigi is faster, so I take damage in order to manipulate that as much as possible. As you can see, I wasn't able to get all of them to attack Luigi every time. This is the first time I manipulate RNG, so I should explain how that works, since RNG manipulation is a very important part of this task. RNG is handled by a 2-byte address, and advances according to a certain formula. When a battle starts, RNG is set to 0. Once the battle is fully loaded, a new RNG seed is chosen, which is based off the DS clock. In battle, RNG advances whenever some random outcome is needed. For example, when an enemy decides what attack to do or who to target. When a bro is hit by an enemy attack and survives. During a bro item demo when a random outcome is needed. When an enemy takes damage from a non-flower attack, determined if it's a lucky hit. During a bro attack when a random outcome is needed, for example, who the next bro will be in a copy flower. There are a lot of opportunities for ledge boosts on this airship. In this battle, lucky hits are still disabled. It's faster for both babies to jump on the lower enemy, decreases the length of the green shells.
Ma pippa la tota lavato, la tutto. Tu l'hai lavato, l'abito. Mhm. Oh no! Oh no! Tapi para to trabaho dulu. Okay.
This room contains a very precise jump. You must start the jump from the very edge of the platform, but if you just jump, you won't make it. You actually need to do a wall boost during the jump to get that extra 1 unit of distance. This makes it sub-pixel perfect and frame perfect. I found that while making the TAS.
Oh. Oh. Mario. Luigi. Babies. Oh yeah. Woohoo! Thank you very much. Uh-oh. Oh yeah. Let's go.
This is a good time to explain how a control works. When the adults and babies are separated, you can only have control of one of the pairs at a time. You can tell which pair you have control of by looking at the action command icons. If A and B are brighter, you have control of the adults, and if X and Y are brighter, you have control of the babies. If there are no action icons, you don't have control of anyone, and this is called a cutscene. If you press a direction on the D-pad, the characters that you have control of are the ones that will move. In other words, characters can only walk if you have control of them. Most actions are only possible if you have control of the character doing that action, including changing action commands, talking to NPCs, reading signs, hammer, baby drill, spin jump, and rose ball. If you have control of the adults and want to gain control of the babies, you must press X or Y while both adults are on the ground. If at least one of the adults is off the ground, press X, Baby Mario will jump, but you will not gain control of the babies. This way it is possible for the characters to jump even if you don't have control of them. Picking up babies works like this. There is a rectangular area on the ground around the babies in which Mario needs to be in order to pick them up. It extends to the babies right and left, but not in front of Mario or behind Luigi. When Mario enters the rectangle, both adults are on the ground, and the babies will begin to climb on the adults' backs. While making this task, I found that on the frame the climbing starts, you can actually move such that Mario is no longer within the rectangle and they will still join up. This saves one frame most of the time of picking up the babies.
Let's go. Okie dokie.
If you kill this Goomba too early, Kamek will spawn another Goomba. So, I leave the Goomba with 2 HP, so that Luigi can kill it in a single jump. I also manipulated Mario getting a lucky hit on this Boo, which allows me to kill it before I get the second attack. When entering a blue pipe, Mario and Luigi both walk to designated positions on the pipe before the pipe takes them to the next area. Since Luigi is behind Mario, he will have to walk further, so it's optimal to enter the pipe from the left side, so Luigi walks the least possible distance. In this room, I'm careful to minimize camera movement by standing in a certain position before the camera moves. I position the babies on this platform before it rises. I can fall while hitting the block to save some time. Coming up is probably the most complicated glitch in the run. I'll explain it after it's done. Alright, this is a long explanation, so bear with me. By falling into the spikes right after hitting the shine block, the Hit by Spikes cutscene is delayed until the shine cutscene finishes. This gives a few frames for the babies to stand on the spikes without getting hurt. Baby Mario faces down here so that the end of the trick will work. Since both babies are on the ground, we can switch control to the adults, which allows Mario to read the sign. Normally you completely lose control when reading a sign, and after closing the sign text, you regain control, which is exactly what happens here. As long as you advance the text fast enough, after closing the sign text you can regain control of the babies during the Hit by Spikes cutscene. This cutscene gives the babies a few properties, but the important one is that their height is increasing, so they are flying upwards. This allows Baby Mario to make it to the platform at the end of the dark room. If Baby Mario jumps, he will jump a normal jump height, fall until he reaches the ground, and then continue flying upwards again. I do this twice to avoid Baby Mario flying all the way off screen, which would end the Hit by Spikes cutscene and respawn him at the start of the dark room. He enters the loading zone when he reaches the ground, after the second jump.
Oh yeah.
During the cutscene, even though he can move, he can't change facing direction, and he needs to be facing down in order to enter the loading zone. This is why he needed to face down before Mario reached the sign.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Okay.
I equipped the salvage badge on Mario because it is fastest. We won't actually salvage anything in this run, but we will sell the salvage badge later on. Here I get 6 Bro Flowers. Bro Flowers will be my main damage source for most of the run because they are extremely broken in a TAS. Flowers are meant to do moderate damage to all enemies, but they can be exploited to do extremely high damage to a single enemy. When using a flower after selecting a target, RNG advances 6 times. Each of these RNG values determines whether the attack will be a lucky hit for a corresponding enemy. In battle, each enemy has an ID from 0 to 5. The first red value determines whether the attack will be a lucky hit on enemy 0, the second red value determines whether the attack will be a lucky hit on enemy 1, etc. Note that RNG advances 6 times regardless of the number of enemies, and there can't be more than 6 targets in a battle. Once the attack begins, the bro who started the attack starts with the big fireball, and the other has the small fireball. The bro with the big fireball throws big fireballs, and the bro with the small fireball throws small fireballs. Big fireballs hit an enemy and do damage. Small fireballs don't hit an enemy and instead decrease the length of the attack by 20 frames when thrown. By default, the attack ends after about 600 frames, or when the boss, or all the enemies, dies. The bro with the big fireball begins by automatically throwing a fireball. Then, each bro must wait 7 frames before throwing a fireball. It takes 9 frames to pass on the fireball from one bro to the other, or 10 if adult Luigi is passing it on. The adults can throw up to 74 fireballs, and the babies can throw 75. If the target is in the air, each bro must wait 8 frames before fireballs, so only 65 fireballs can be thrown. I get 9 more bro flowers in this room. The damage dealt is calculated for each fireball individually, then added together. Flowers have the lowest attack constant in this game, 0.109. This low attack constant means the base damage per fireball is always less than 1 in this run. When the initial damage calculation gives a result less than 1, it is immediately rounded up to 1. No matter how high the enemy defense is, or how low the attack level or POW is, each fireball will do 1 damage before the other effects are taken into account. These other effects include lucky hits, which will make each fireball do 2 damage, and critical hits, which will also make each fireball do 2 damage. This is also where badges that increase damage dealt are taken into account, but this run won't use any of those. In this room, it's important for the adults to stand as far north as possible, while still being under the next block, because that minimizes camera scrolling time. I can jump with Luigi while the babies are in the air to make Luigi hit the block while maintaining control of the babies. The area before Vim Factory is intended to be completed counterclockwise, but a glitch called Spike Skip makes it possible to complete it clockwise, thereby skipping all of the auto-scrolling floating platforms. When Mario lands on the spikes, there is one frame when he's standing on the spikes before the Hit by Spikes cutscene starts. Note that this frame only exists for some spike pits, it doesn't exist in Bowser's Castle Dark Room, for instance. On this frame, if Luigi is also on the ground, we can switch control of the babies. If Luigi is not on the spikes, this cancels the Hit by Spikes cutscene, so that when we switch back on to the adults, Mario can freely walk to spikes to the next room. That glitch was found by Solidified Gaming. I face right as I hit this block because baby Luigi will be put behind Mario, and he will walk to the far left. So by facing right, baby Luigi is put on the left to begin with, so he's less distance to walk. After hitting all 4 blocks, I regain control of the babies so I can join up with the adults faster. If I had control of the adults after hitting the blocks, I could either pick up the babies with the adults, which requires more walking, or I could switch to the babies, but then they would jump and delay the picking up until they land. So it's faster to first gain control of the babies, since they can just walk to the adults afterwards. We can skip the last floating platform by just falling in the spikes. Here in the Hammer Bros battle, we can see how broken Bro Flowers are. Each Bro has 90 HP for a total of 180 HP. 2 flowers will do 150 damage, so an unlucky hit is needed for a quick battle. I also need to throw as few fireballs as possible, since every fireball takes 7 frames. Therefore, I make most of the lucky hit by attacking only the upper Bro during the first flower, and then getting a lucky hit on the bottom Hammer Bro in the second flower. Any fireballs hit the bottom Bro during the first flower would be slower because I would need more fireballs in total. I will explain more about how flowers work later. That was just a taste of what we can really do with Bro Flowers and Ice Flowers.
Oh yeah! Thank you very much! Let's go!
The length of the baby drill entering the ground animation depends on the direction faced before pressing Y. It's fastest to face up left before pressing Y. It's slowest to be facing up because the animation will be 18 frames longer. This is because when you press Y, it'll rotate clockwise until they are facing up. If they are facing up to begin with, they'll rotate a full 360 degrees. But if they are facing up left, they will only need to rotate 45 degrees. I found this by accident while making the first TAS. I can get a ledge boost off of each of these ledges here. Coming up is an out-of-bounds glitch. We can clip through this corner in the vent and skip the first hammer tutorial battle. It's not fully known how corner clips work, but here's what I understand. The walls around a convex corner push Mario away from the walls and the corner when he walks along them towards the corner. However, when he walks along the walls away from the corner, they don't work properly. So, we can first walk directly into the corner, perpendicular to the walls, and then walk away from the corner along the walls. From here, we can simply walk out of bounds.
Peekaboo! Babies! Let's go!
There's no way to skip this battle, unfortunately. It's faster to get hit here because the hammering animation is slow. This means I don't counterattack them, so I have to throw more fireballs, but it still saves a few frames. It's fastest to put the adults right here before throwing the babies. When landing on a blue switch, Mario first walks to a certain point on the switch and then to the door. He does this walking at half speed, so it's best to land right on the point where he walks to, so he starts walking to the door right away. If he lands within the same pixel but not the exact same subpixel, he will still walk for 1 frame. With a few exceptions, I managed to land on the perfect subpixel position for every blue switch. This is not as hard as it might sound, since the blue switch points are always integers, and your position is always an integer, usually. I can skip most of this room by doing a ledge clip. The game prevents stacking under a ceiling that's too low to fit the stack. However, if Mario is less than 1 pixel under a ledge, and Luigi is far enough to the right of Mario and close enough to the ledge, the game will allow them to stack under a ceiling that's too low. Now, if they walk or spin upwards, the game will try to move them to a place where they can fit. If there is a floor above them, they will be clipped up to that floor. This technique was first found in Superstar Saga by Mug, and found/applied in this game by Solidified Gaming. In this case, they are first placed inside the block, where they are stuck, but you can just hammer the block, and then open up the door to the next room.
Oh yeah. Oh no.
Swiggler has 200 HP. So in order to kill him with 2 flowers, I need to get 2 lucky hits, each doing 100 damage with 50 fireballs. Even with the 2 Dr. Shroobs I have to avoid hitting, this is very manageable. The default RNG seed is very good, I just needed to advance RNG once by getting hit. Every time a fireball is thrown, RNG advances 3 times. One of these values determines which enemy the fireball will hit. Note that this happens with big and small fireballs, and it happens even if there's only one enemy. RNG advances every frame during a flower, so it is simple to wait frames before throwing a fireball in order to hit a certain enemy. There are a few catches, the most important one being that the more enemies there are on screen, the more frames I have to wait between fireballs. This means I throw fewer fireballs doing less damage. When there is only one enemy, I can throw 74 fireballs. The rule of thumb is that for each enemy added, I can throw 7 fewer fireballs. So with 3 enemies, I can throw 60 fireballs to Swiggler. I only needed to throw 50 fireballs during each flower, so there was some leniency. This is good because I needed to manipulate the second lucky hit during the first flower. Since RNG advances every frame during a flower, I can throw the last fireball on a specific frame that will end the attack with a favorable RNG value. So by waiting 1 extra frame, I can advance the RNG once more. This is the general strategy for manipulating the next lucky hit during a flower, but there are various other ways to manipulate the RNG faster. I will usually time a small fireball near the end of the flower as well, because they advance RNG 3 times without wasting any time. The problem with small fireballs is that they decrease the length of the attack, so I can't do as much damage. However, if you throw a small fireball sufficiently close to the end of the attack, its effects are different. Throwing a small fireball within a few frames of a normal fireball also changes which enemy the normal fireball will target. And exactly how this works is not quite understood and varies from battle to battle. I used a lot of trial and error in order to do this optimally. I also advanced RNG a few times by taking damage. This is a pretty fast way to advance RNG, but I can't use it too much or else they would die. Since the best ways to advance RNG is during flowers, it's difficult to make the first flower in a battle a lucky hit. In the Hammer Bros battle, only the second flower was lucky. I was able to make the first flower on Swiggler lucky by getting a good starting RNG seed right off the bat. I do another Toad boost on my way to Egad.
Yabo yabo. Yabo yabo.
Most runs of this game go to the shop before learning spin jump to buy stuff, but it's not worth it in this run.
Oh yeah. Piazza Matador Robotonoli, Rabao. Piazza Matador Robotonoli, Rabao. Tomoto e Toro Sarabata e Toro Polkona Megoro. Okay.
Spinning has a speed of 2, the same as walking. Walking in spin jump formation has a speed of 1 though. In the spin jump tutorial, I land on the left edge of the platforms in order to jump as soon as possible. This is one of my favorite rooms in the game to optimize because of all the stair jumps. I can decrease the length of the baby throw animation by tossing them onto a platform. Also, when they land, baby Luigi spends a few frames walking backwards, but if they land right on the edge of a platform, baby Luigi won't walk and I can switch to the adults faster. Yoshi's Island is the most broken area of the game. The Kylie Koopa, Yoob, and Kamek introduction cutscenes, and the Yoshi Cookie cutscene can be skipped with 2 precise ledge clips. In order to clip up onto the huts, walking isn't enough since in this case it will push you down. They need to spin for just long enough to make it onto the hut roof, which counts as a floor. The adults can then use the pipe lock and continue to the next area. Coming up is a complicated glitch called Top Screen Storage, or TSS. It was the first big glitch found by Solidified Gaming. If the babies are on a top screen and the adults enter a bottom screen loading zone, the babies will be forced out of the top screen in order to prevent a top screen corresponding to room A being loaded at the same time as room B is loaded. TSS involves getting around this restriction and having a top screen loaded while the wrong bottom screen is loaded. There are a few types of TSS, but this run only uses one type, spring TSS. If the babies use a spring just as the adults enter a loading zone with the correct timing, the new bottom screen and the top screen will load at the same time, resulting in TSS. In 99% of cases, entering a loading zone requires having control of the pair that is entering the loading zone, since you need to walk into a loading zone and you can only walk with the pair you have control of. So, to make this work, we need to have control of the adults, which means we won't have control of the babies. It is possible to do some actions, notably jumping, with the pair that you don't have control of, as long as at least one of the rows you have control of is not on the ground. If Baby Mario clips into a spring, and Baby Luigi jumps onto the spring, then as soon as Baby Mario jumps and lands on the spring, both babies will be on the spring so they can use the spring. How do we clip into a spring? If Baby Mario falls off the left or right side of the spring without being ledge boosted, by immediately going back to the spring. Thus, Baby Mario can stand on the ground right under spring's surface, while Baby Mario stands on the spring, or Baby Luigi stands on the spring. This means that the babies can use the spring without having control of the babies. All this allows spring TSS to be possible. First, Luigi jumps so that he's in the air when Baby Mario jumps, so that we can retain control of the adults. Then, Baby Mario jumps. 24 frames after Baby Mario jumps, the spring animation begins and we completely lose control of everyone. During this time, Mario walks to the loading zone, but if he enters the loading zone too early, the top screen from the spring won't load correctly. So, Mario needs to jump into the loading zone so that the loading zone is delayed until he lands. This explains how to get spring TSS, but not why it's useful. If the babies leave a hole from the top screen, the camera is locked and a script is run from the current bottom screen's script table. This will often soft lock or crash the game depending on what script is played. This run though, the babies are simply placed at coordinate 00 in the bottom screen room, which is always out of bounds in the top left corner. Here, they can simply walk to the loading zone and then use the pipe lock to proceed to the next area of Yoshi's Island. I will do another spring TSS in this room to skip the Kamek boss battle. Since it requires entering the loading zone with solo adults, we first need to enter the door, and then we can do the TSS. After going in a tornado, spinning speed is increased from 2 to 3. Now that the door is opened, we can do Kamek skip. I spring clip, then trigger the spring and loading zone at the same time. After spawning out of bounds, the babies can skip the Kamek battle by walking around the trigger and into the loading zone. The camera lock persists until halfway through the cutscene, which you beats the pros.
Uh-oh.
As you can see, the camera is still locked, but it fixes itself.
Mario! Babies. Mario! Babies.
We skipped the cutscene where Luigi gets these
Oh,
cookies,
yeah.
so I'm not sure how he has them.
Oh.
There are two versions of this room, the one you see now, and the one after the Yoshis push the rock. The loading zone to the next area only exists in the second version, so there's no way to skip rescuing all the Yoshis and pushing the rock. There are many possible routes for rescuing all the Yoshis, and I'll explain why I chose this one. Two of the Yoshis are guarded by Archie Shroober battles and they are weak to ice flowers, so I want to get the top right Yoshi first, because there is an ice flower block there. On the way, I give the hungry Yoshi a fruit. If you jump on the spring fast enough after hitting the block, you can overlap the getting fruit cutscene with babies coming out of the stump. Here, I collect those ice flowers I mentioned. I switched from the babies to the adults at a particular point along the baby's walk in order to get a good RNG seed for this battle. As I said earlier, the RNG for a battle depends on the DS clock time. I was able to get a lucky hit after some demo RNG manipulation. While the cursor is on a flower in the Bro item menu, the demo plays on the top screen. 17 frames after the demo starts, RNG advances once to determine whether the Bro in the demo will throw 3 or 4 fireballs. Once this happens, I can switch to the next flower and wait another 17 frames, and continue until I get the RNG I want. The Archie Shroobers are weak to ice flowers, so this is a lucky and critical hit, which means each fireball does 3 damage. I can use a ledge clip to skip opening the door to the blue Yoshi. Opening this door requires hitting a long button color combination. Even though it doesn't look like it, there is a floor above the walls that enclose the Yoshi that we can ledge clip up to and then fall off of. I tried to manipulate the Yoshi to walk off to the left, which would make it so I don't have to walk as far, but I couldn't manage to manipulate that in a way that saved time. Since the adults are then stuck, I switched to the babies. Makes you wonder how the Yoshi got out. This fight is similar to the first RC Shroober, except it would have taken too long to manipulate a lucky hit. So, Fireball does 2 damage instead of 3. I could do another corner clip, like Vent Clip, but this one is much more precise than Vent Clip. There is a 3 pixel range in which the clip can be started, and not all subpixels in that range will work. Also, the adults have to be stacked in order to perform the clip, because walking speed is halved while stacked. Before clipping, I positioned the babies such that their rectangle that I described earlier extends barely out of bounds. This clip cuts out some movement and saves a little over 10 seconds. Also, the clip is only possible on the second version of the room, after the rock is pushed, because the collision is actually different between versions. This clip was found by Ghost King, and then I reproduced it. By throwing the babies as soon as possible, they hit the ceiling and then hit the ground faster, saving a few frames. This room just contained a bit more extended wall boosts.
Oh yeah.
Because we never brush off Toadwood's drawing, this is actually a 0 times touchscreen press run.
Sono lavato, l'ho visto! yeah. Let's go. Yo-ho.
Before the Sunnyside battle, I paused to unequip all my gear and badges. This is because you can't sell them while they are equipped.
Bye-bye.
Luigi! Let's go!
Oh,
Sunnyside has 480 HP, so 4 flowers are necessary to kill him. All 4 need to be lucky hit, and the eggs make it so the flowers do less damage to Sunnyside. Therefore, I manipulate Sunnyside to throw as many eggs as possible. I waited about 40 frames before the battle for an RNG seed that made Sunnyside throw 4 eggs and had a quick lucky hit. During the second flower, I manipulated Sunnyside to throw 1 egg, which is very rare. There is 1 leg left. It almost always calls down more eggs, which is slow. Now, there are no eggs, so I can do a lot of damage with Lucky Bro Flowers.
Bum 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 bum. Yoshi!
oh, hello here.
This is the point in the game where the next time I talk to Egad, the time hold to Shroob Castle will open. This means that I now have the task of efficiently preparing for the final boss. First, I go to the shop, and the fastest way to do that is through the library. I will sell the salvage badge for 49 coins and then do money glitch. When selling all of an item, if you select the next item on the first possible frame, the sell price of the first item is stored in the second item. I store the sell price of 49 coins and sell all of the starting gear, as well as 8 smash eggs that I picked up in Yoshi's Island for 49 coins each, and get over 1,000 coins. With this money, I buy 2 big POW badges and 1 EXP badge, which I equip on Luigi. Now the time hold of Shroob Castle is open, but there is one more thing I absolutely need, the Bros Ball ability. Ball is necessary to do gate skip. When entering Bros Ball facing left or right, Mario is sent 8 units behind him. This has 2 uses. First, I always face backwards before using Bros Ball, so that behind Mario becomes the direction I want to travel in. More importantly, this displacement can clip through some walls that are too thin or otherwise coated badly. Here you can see me face left before rolling, so that the ball forms to the right of Mario. And that saves a few frames. After some more stair jumping, we are ready to go to Shroob Castle right now. As I explained earlier, this is the major breakthrough which led to such a large improvement. The gate to Shroob Castle only opens after you collect 5 Cobalt Star Shards, which requires about an hour and a half of gameplay after the time hold of Shroob Castle opens after beating Sunnyside. However, we can access the loading zone behind the gate as soon as the time hole opens by ball clipping through the right side of the gate. As with Yube's belly clip, I can first position the babies such that the adults can pick them up without clipping back out of the gate. I could do some very precise jumps to skip hitting the exclamation point block and the moving platform in the dark room. I also grab 2 red shells which are in a convenient location. I can overlap the bridge cutscene picking up the babies. I carefully dodge these enemies and get 3 more bro flowers. Here I get the space pants, which increase the wearer's POW by 30. I also grab these 3 copy flowers. Even though we have some pretty good gear and badges now, we are still very underleveled.
Let's go.
This is the first of 3 battles I fight to be prepared for the final bosses. Luigi has the experience badge equipped, which means that any enemy Luigi kills with any bro item will give 20% or 1.2 times more experience. In order for this route to work, every enemy that gives experience must be by Luigi or else the adults will not reach level 11. The soul bubbles each have 100 HP, so I can kill them with 1 lucky flower, even though they are aerial enemies. The Shroob Rex has 200 HP, so 1 lucky flower is not enough, but 1 non-lucky flower and 1 lucky is enough. So, on the first turn, since it's difficult to manipulate a lucky hit as the first hit, I deal enough damage to the Shroob Rex so that I can kill it later with a lucky hit. This Bro Flower also inflicts burn, which takes away the Shroob Rex's next turn, and deals 8 damage later in the battle. Luigi then kills one of the Soul Bubbles with a lucky Bro Flower. If the Soul Bubble is attacked and survives, it will either heal or revive an enemy, and I want to avoid that at all costs. On Mario's next turn, it's important to not kill either of the remaining enemies, since we want to kill all enemies with Luigi for the EXP bonus. Therefore, he just uses a lucky Bro Flower to bring the Shroob Rex to low health, so that Luigi can finish it off when he kills the last Soul Bubble. Mario's stash is so low that the chance of a lucky hit against the Shroob Rex is 1 in 100, but I got a very good seed for this battle which allowed that to happen without wasting much time at all. I was expecting to equip the Space Pants on Mario before this battle for the increased stash, but I didn't have to do that. Finally, Luigi kills the Shroob Rex and the second Soul Bubble with an Ice Flower. I used an Ice Flower because it advanced his RNG more, since every hit checks whether to apply a debuff to the target. I also wanted to advance RNG more in order to get the 1 point pants, a rare 2.25% chance drop from the Shroob Rex. I got a significantly long string of RNG values that didn't get the drop, so I had to advance it as much as possible. After Gate Skip was found, it was still necessary to beat PD Piranha in order to learn Baby Spin, which was required to get through Shroob Castle. This ball clip on the first floor of Shroob Castle made it possible to get through the dungeon without Baby Spin. So this is really what made it possible to go to the end of the game right after the Shroob Castle time hole opens. This ball clip puts the adults inside a wall and they are warped up to the floor, similar to a ledge clip. I can again pick up the babies from outer bounds and walk to the loading zone. This clip was found by Really Tall. This battle is fought with the adults, since the babies are already where I want them to be, at level 10, 31 POW, and if I fought it with the babies, there would be unnecessary time taken up by level ups, no extra damage dealt later. I waited for a good seed in which the Ghoul Guy possesses the Shroob Rex, which makes it possible to win the battle on Luigi's first turn. As in the previous battle, I kill it with 1 non-lucky and 1 lucky Bro Flower, while manipulating another 100 point chance drop. Note that the Ghoul Guy gives experience, but not the bonus experience, because the game doesn't consider Luigi to have actually killed it. Now that we are on the ledges, I could hit the top laser block and go to the east wing of the second floor, right at the end of the dungeon. However, it's faster to go to the west wing of the second floor, just as you would in a normal playthrough. I need to hit this pipe block to get the adults so that we can go in the pipe. I waited a few frames before this loading zone to get a good RNG seed in the next battle. This is the last battle I do for preparation, and again I fight it with solo adults.
Let's go.
Okie dokie.
When a Shroobsworth dies, an intern Shroob spawns. On the intern Shroob's first turn, it will revive the Shroobsworth, which we want to avoid. Since we have to kill the intern Shroob before it gets a turn, this is done by killing the Shroobsworth with Mario, so that Luigi gets the next turn. It is not quite possible for Mario to kill it on its first turn, since it has 160 HP and a Lucky Flower can do at most 148 damage. And a first strike and a counter can't quite do 12 damage. Not to mention, it would have taken too long to manipulate the first flower to be a lucky hit. So I opt to deal the majority of damage with a Lucky Flower from Luigi, finishing it with a jump from Mario. Luigi can then kill the intern Shroob right away with another Lucky Flower, getting the rare drop, Supreme Slats. Note that the intern Shroob is responsible for giving the EXP and drops, not the Shroobsworth. Now I have Space Pants and Supreme Slacks for the adults, and 2 100-point pants for the babies. Now we need to get to the east side of the second floor, but a tall bookshelf divides the library in half. I can do a ledge clip to reach the floor above the top loading zone, and then a ball clip to get out of bounds and roll past the bookshelf. To explain ball clipping again, when entering Rose Ball facing left, Mario is sent 8 units to the right, and this can clip through some walls that are too thin, or not coded correctly. Now that we're on the third floor, a bunch of stair jumps is all that separates us from the point of no return. Hey look, it's all the Cobalt Star Shards that we definitely collected.
No.
Let's go.
Okie dokie.
Mario! Luigi!
Yahoo!
Oh!
Papi para to tarbato tutu.
Hmm.
I paused before the UFO minigame and equipped the Supreme Slacks, Space Pants, both 100-point pants, and the Big Pop badges on the adults. This pause also favorably changed the RNG for the UFO minigame. The mothership has two patterns. It'll spawn 3 UFOs and then go off screen, or it'll spawn 1 UFO and stay on screen. The second pattern is much faster, so I make sure it always happens. With good timing, you can hit 2 UFOs into the mothership at once, which makes it 3 cycles instead of 4. It's possible to do it in 2 cycles by getting 2 double hits, but I couldn't manipulate this in a way that would be faster.
Oh yeah. No. Mario.
Here's the first of the final bosses, Princess Shroob, who has 1700 HP in this version. I equipped Big Pow badges on the adults, which give a temporary POW boost of 60% after getting a great rating on a bro item. Luigi has more speed than Mario since he's wearing the Supreme Slacks. First, Luigi does a great copy flower to destroy Princess Shroob's shield and get the POW boost. Even though it's only necessary to do 15 hits, I do more to get the great rating. Then Mario does a bro flower to get his POW boost, deal some damage, and manipulate a fast attack, as well as good RNG on the upcoming red shell. Luigi's red shell hit does 6 damage, Mario's does 7. So the red shell takes a long time since she has 1700 HP. But you can see now why it saves time to get in a few encounters for experiencing gear drops. It's not possible to manipulate each individual hit of a red shell to be a lucky hit, because there is no way to manipulate RNG during a red shell. However, I could start the red shell with a good RNG value. The list of RNG values that are used alternate being used with Mario and Luigi. Since Luigi has higher stash, I was able to save time by making more of Luigi's hits lucky. The red shell animation length actually depends on the distance the target is from the bros. Princess Shroob is one of the furthest enemies. Each red shell hit takes 27 frames at top speed.
Oh yeah. Huh?
Even though we only collected 2 Cobalt Star Shards, we still have to fight Elder Princess Shroob.
Oh no. Let's go.
Oh, Loki.
Like in the last battle, I first give the bros POW boosts by getting great bro flowers. During the first flower, I can manipulate the second flower to be a lucky hit. Luigi takes damage because countering this counterattack will take a long time. Of course, I can't take damage the second time, or else Luigi will die. During the second flower, I manipulated the saucer to drop a red shell. Since I only got 2 red shells in the Shroob Castle Darkroom, but I want to use 3. I already used 1 on Princess Shroob, and now I use 1 to kill the first phase of Elder Princess Shroob. At this point, I would have no more red shells, but I want to use 1 on the second phase's foot. Originally, I planned to go out of the way and get a block with 3 red shells instead. The saucer drop strategy is much faster. Since I had to manipulate the saucer drop, I couldn't manipulate much else in this battle. These red shells are only 20 frames apart, and do even less damage. When Elder Princess Shroob transforms, she attacks regardless of when her turn is. I take damage to manipulate a very fast spin attack. I use a red shell on the foot. This one is only 18 frames per hit. It's necessary to kill the foot in order to be able to attack the crown. These attacks are kind of long, but once again, there's not really any way to manipulate them, just using a red shell. Now it's necessary to kill the crown in order to deal more than 1 damage per hit. Yes. In the previous TAS, I killed the crown with a bro flower, but that was only possible because I had risk badges. I use a copy flower instead, which is not much slower. I made sure that I end the copy flower on a failed hit. If I ended on a successful hit, the copy flower would continue and start targeting a different enemy. To do this, the crown's HP has to be exactly 1 at some point, which won't always happen. Finally, I'm able to kill Elder Princess Shroob with 1 last copy flower. Again, I made sure that her HP was exactly 1 at some point, so it could end on a failed hit. I manipulated RNG before this copy flower by watching the bro flower demo for 17 frames. It's a good thing I had 1 bro flower left after all of this. And with that, EPS is dead. If someone wants to count how many hits that was, be my guest. These cutscenes are a good time to thank all the people that made this run possible. First, Solidified Gaming, who found most of the new glitches in this game, including, of course, Gate Skip. Also, Really Tall found Baby Spin Skip, which was necessary for this route to work. He also found a bunch of other glitches that unfortunately aren't used in this run. I also have to thank Ghost King for finding the clip to Noob's belly. I want to give a huge thank you to JDA Stir 64 for finding a lot of useful information like the RNG formula, attack constants, and stat increase tables, which made routing the TAS so much easier. Shoutouts to Snowion and Ghost King for being the modern speedrunners of Partners in Time. Whenever they fail something in a run, it gives me motivation to work on the TAS. But seriously, their efforts have made this game get a lot more attention. On May 19th, they will run this game at RPG Limit Break, an RPG speedrunning event, so keep an eye out for that. I also want to give a shout out to Anwonu, who dominated speedruns of this game until 2017, and got me interested in TASing it back in 2015. Most of his routing and glitch hunting efforts have been obsoleted in the past year, especially in TAS, but he is still a strong influence on this run. For example, he found Monday Glitch. Look out for a new Bowser's Inside Story TAS at some point somewhat soon, made by Vince1919, as well as a new Superstar Saga TAS by Mug someday.
Oh yeah.
It's faster to roll here than to walk. The Trouser battle is pretty straightforward. This attack, where fireballs fall from the sky, is pretty long, but it took too much time to manipulate him to do it less than twice. The only way to manipulate RNG during this battle is by taking damage. And every time you don't dodge attack, you lose time because dodging attacks is the way to damage Trouser.
Oh, yeah.
So, what's next for this game? I've been working on this game for about 2.5 years, so I need a break. The next big theoretical skip is Elder Princess Shroob skip. There may be a way to skip the final boss, most likely by using top screen storage to play one of the endgame cutscenes. If this is found, I'll make a quick TAS of it, but it wouldn't obsolete this run, since I think the final boss is a very important part of the game. I don't know any ways to save time in this run for sure. With better RNG throughout, upwards of 30 seconds could possibly be saved. One of the ideas I had is to combine the second and third battles in Shroob Castle into one battle, but the RNG required to do this is incredibly specific, if it is even possible to do so. If nothing else is found, I will try to get this to work at some point. Someday, I want to make an all bosses TAS on the US version to show off more of the new glitches, as well as a low percent TAS, in which the final boss would take multiple hours. I don't have plans to do any of these anytime soon though. For now, the fact that it's possible to beat this game in under 2 hours is incredible. I hope this run was entertaining and that this commentary explained everything you wanted to know. Feel free to ask more questions, and thanks for watching.